Good morning, everybody. So as we start the new week and the new Parsha, the portion of Toldos. We're going to start on chapter 25, verse number 19. Eila Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram. These are the offsprings of Yitzchak, the son of Abraham. Avram Hoilis Yitzchak. Avram had Yitzchak. So Rashi says, what are the offsprings of Isaac, the son of Avram? Yaakov and Esav Amurim v'Pasha, Jacob and Esav, which is mentioned in this week's portion. Avram Hoiled Yitzchak, Abraham gave birth to Yitzchak. So Rashi says it's a double expression. These are the offsprings of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram had Yitzchak. If the son Yitzchak is the son of Avram, so we know Avram had Yitzchak. So Rashi says the reason why Aldei Shekasav Yitzchak ben Avram, since the Torah wrote that Yitzchak is the son of Avram, he had to say that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. Why? Because there were those who were saying, there were critics, the critics of the generations, were saying that Mavi Melech Nesavda actually was not for Yitzchak. Actually, not from Avram Avinu, it was not from Abraham. It was actually from Avimelech. Avimelech took Sarah, captured Sarah, and suddenly after that story, Sarah became pregnant. So people were saying, maybe that the child is not Abraham's. So therefore, what did God do? God made that Avram and Yitzchak looked like each other. They had the exact same face. They looked like twins. And everybody said, Yitzchak looks exactly like Avram. So God took, automatically blew away the critics of the generation. Verse number 20. Yitzchak was 40 years old. Rivka, when he got married to Rivka, Arami, the daughter of Besul, the Arami, Mipadan Aram, from Padan Aram, Achais Lavan, who was a sister of Lavan, Harami, Loili Isha, took her as a wife. Rashi says, Ben Aboyim Shana, he was 40 years old. Why? Because when Abraham came from the Mount Moriah, it says, after the story of the Akedah, it says that Yitzchak was told that Rivka was born. And at that time, Yitzchak was 37 years old. And at that time, Sarah died. Because for the time that Yitzchak, until the Akedah, was 37 years old. Because she was 90 when she gave birth, and she passed away at 127. So it's 37 years old. And at that time, Rivka was born. So you had to wait for her till she was 3 years old. So Rivka was 3 years old when she got married. And Yitzchak was 40 years old. Bas Besuel, the son of the daughter of Besuel from Ram, and the sister of Lavan. We know that already, Rashi says. Why did the Torah tell us again? But the Torah is telling to us again to tell you the greatness of Rivka. She was a daughter of a wicked man. She was a sister of a wicked guy, Lavan. But she was beautiful. She was like a rose in between the thorns. Padan Aram. So Rashi is again. Padan Aram it was mentioned last time in Rashi. It's a Aram was between two rivers, and that's why it's called Padan Aram. Okay, continue on verse number 21. So Isaac prayed to the Lord opposite his wife because she was barren. And God accepted his prayer. Batar Rivka Ishta, and Rivka became pregnant. Now she says, Vayeta harbe v'histveh tefillah. Vayeta, the word Vayeta means he not does prayer, but actually very strong prayer. Vayeta loy, when it says that God heard his prayer, that means somebody else was praying. And who else was praying? And Rashi says that actually they were both praying. Each one was praying on the other side of the room. Isaac was praying on one side of the room, and Rebecca was praying on the other side of the room. But it says Vayet Eloi. So here we learn that there's no comparison the prayer of a righteous, the son of a righteous, from a righteous, the son of a wicked, and that's why it was heard his prayer. And she became pregnant, Baruch Hashem. By verse 22, the children were struggling within her. And she said, in Cain, this is what I prayed for. She went to inquire by God. So Rashi says, it's an interesting expression of Rashi. Rashi says, this voice screams out and says, please explain me. Because it's something is missing in the Yisroitzitzu. They were fighting. Who was struggling? What do you mean struggling? And not only was struggling, that she should say, why do I need this? Everybody, the Torah said to Adam and Eve, that you will struggle in childbirth, so in pregnancy. So what was her problem? So therefore the rabbis had to interpret this verse, and they said by Yisroitzitzu they were running. That whenever Rivka passed an idol worship place, the Esav wanted to run out, and whenever he passed a holy place, Yaakov wanted to run out. And that's what she felt. What's going on over here? That's why she felt like a while. She didn't know that she's having two children. She thought she's having one child. So one child wants to go to an impure place, and the same child wants to go to a pure place. That's crazy. But Tema, so she, another interpretation that actually two of them were struggling for the two worlds. That each one wanted the other world. That Yaakov also wanted this world. And Esau said, no, this world, you go to the other world. I want to have this world. It was a very painful, this whole thing. It was a very complex pregnancy. So she said, why do I need this? Why did I pray to conceive? I'm going to have such a mixed up child. She went to the Academy of Shame. Famous academy in those days where Avram learned and Yitzchak learned and Yaakov learned. There's where they studied godliness and Torah. Lidish Hashem, she went to search out the prophet. Some say it was Avram Avinu actually, who she went to, was sitting in the house of shame, and should tell her what's going to be the outcome. And he told her, and God told her through this prophet, you're going to have two nations in your womb. And two kingdoms will separate from your innards. And one kingdom will become mightier than the other kingdom. But the elder will serve the younger. Here is one of the beginning of the great prophecies of the struggles of good and evil. So it was told to this messenger, the shame it was told to shame in a prophecy, and he told her. Geim, it says two yuds. The word written geim, which is pronounced geim, exalted persons. Who are they? Who is he talking about? Shnei geim, two great people. This is a prophecy for Tinis v'Rebbe. Tinis was the one who ruled the Roman ruler over Israel, and Rebbe, who lived in the time of Rebbe Yehuda Nasi, and they became great friends. These two people, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was the leader of the Jewish nation. He became a secret friend of Antinius, and they became friends. They learned together. They studied together. There's many stories in the Gemara, and we know they were both very wealthy. Antinius was wealthy. He was a Roman ruler of Israel. He was wealthy, and the Rebbe was also extremely very, very, very wealthy. Shnei le'umim, ein le'um ela malchus. The concept of kingdom is the aspect of is the aspect of kingdom. They're going to they separate good and evil, will separate from your stomach, minamayim, from your stomach, from your womb. They'll come out, one will go to the wickedness and one will go to his innocence. But they'll never be equal. This is a very powerful prophecy. When one rises, the other will fall. And as Ezekiel said ultimately, Tyre became full, gained power, Rome, from only because of the destruction of Jerusalem. Days of birth came to complete. And behold, she had twins. See, she didn't know that she was going to have twins. Rashi says, we find by Tamar also the same expression. So the term of pregnancy was not filled, because her term of pregnancy is not filled. She only had it to 7 months. And behold, that there were twins. So Rashi's tumim is spelled, effectively missing the letter Aleph and the Yud by Rivka. But Tamar, which you mentioned in the previous Rashi, over there it's written with a complete Tu'um and Taf Aleph Vav Mem Yud Mem. Why? Because over there was by Tamar she had 2 righteous children, and by Rivka she had 1 righteous and 1 wicked. Verse 25. The first one went out totally red. Kulak Adera Seir, he was completely like a coat of hair. Yikru Shmei Esav, and they called his name Esav. Admaini, why was he red? Because Simon, she is Shefer Dam, it was a sign that he's going to spill blood. Kulak Adera Seir, Molis Seir Katalas, he was full of hair like a woolen cloak, which is full of hair. Yikru Shmei Esav, and they called his name Esav. Why? Because he was like complete, fully developed there, like 1 year old. So they said he's a complete child. And then his brother came out, Esav, and his hand was holding onto the heels of Esav. And he called his name Yaakov. Yitzchak ben Shishim Shana Beledas Esav, and Yitzchak was 60 years old when they had her, and they had them. When Rivka was 23 years old at this time. So Rashi says, I heard a Medrash Haggadah that interprets according to the simple meaning. He, Jacob, held on to lawfully to restrain him. Why? Because Jacob was formed from the first drop and Esau from the second. Go forth and learn from the tube that has a narrow opening. Insert 2 stones into it, one after the other. The one that enters first will emerge last, and the one that enters last will emerge first. The result is that Esau, who was formed last, emerged first, and Yaakov, who was formed first, emerged last. And Jacob came to restrain him. He said, I was born first, I should come out first. He was the first to be born, and as he was first to be formed, and he would open her womb and take the birthright by law, but he didn't let him. So really, Rashi tells you really Yaakov was actually the Bechor in his mother's stomach, but ultimately childbirth is one that establishes who is the eldest, and Esav came out first. Rashi says, what is the meaning of the hail of Esav? It signifies that one Esav will not manage to complete his reign until one rises and takes it from him. And that's what's going to happen. Yaakov will ultimately have to take the reign from Esav. Yaakov, and he called his name Yaakov. By Esav, it says they called his name. So who is the singular? He called his name. So Rashi says God gave the name Yaakov. Or you can say that his father called him Yaakov, because he was holding on to the heels of Esav. So Rashi says, Ben Shishim Shana, he was 60 years old, 10 years since he married her until he became 13 years old and able to conceive. So they waited first 10 years that she was 13 years old. And following 10 years, he looked forward and waited for her as his father had done for Sarah. Since she did not conceive, she was 23 years old. He knew that she was barren and he prayed for her. But he did not wish to take a maidservant as Abraham had done, because he was hollow from the Mount Moriah. He was a burnt offering. He couldn't leave the land of Israel. And Yitzchak never married another woman as his father or even as his son Yaakov, who ultimately married 4 women. Verse 27. And these lads grew up. Esav was a man of hunting, and Yaakov and the man of the field. Yaakov Ishtam Yeshav Aholim, and Jacob was an innocent man dwelling in tents. He don't know them. He Esav. So as long as they were small, they were not recognizable through their deeds, and one scrutinized them to determine their character. And you couldn't know what was going to be. As soon as they became 13 years old, this one parted to the house of study, and that one parted to the house of right away. That's what happens. You can start really seeing the child when he's 13 years old. Yedei Tzayid. So what means he knew how to trap and deceive? Yedei Tzayid, he was a hunter with his mouth. He knew how to fake it. He knew how to fake it to his father. He would talk to his father and ask him questions in Jewish law. And his father thought, wow, what a inquisitive child I have. I have a great child who wants to know all aspects of how to tithe, all laws of Torah. Ish Sada, but ultimately he was a man of the field, as a parent meaning an idler who hunts beasts and birds with a bow. Tom Yaakov was Ish Tom Ein Baki B'Chalela. Yaakov was not an expert in all these matters. Like his heart was his mouth. One who's not astute to deceive is called innocent. Yoshev Ha'olam, he was a man who sat in the tents. Ahalei shel shame, he sat in the tents of shame and aver, and he sat and learned Torah. Yitzchak loved Esav because he had his game in his mouth. But Rivka, Heves, Yaakov, and Yifka loved in the mouth of Isaac. And the Medrash interprets it in the mouth of Esav. He would trap him and deceive him with his words. Verse 29. Yaakov nazid, and Jacob cooked a pottage. And he came from the field and he was tired. Vayazid is, as we translated, he cooked. He was tired. Why was he so tired? Because he committed murder that day. He killed Nimrod, as the Medrash tells us. He was tired. Esav turned to Yaakov. He said, give me from this red potterage. I see you're making this red potterage. I'm tired. That's why he was called Edom. So Rashi says, I'm going to open my mouth, pour the pottage into me. As we learned, you may not stuff a camel, or you may put food into his mouth because he's never satisfied. Red lentils. On that day, why was Isaac making red lentils? But on that day, Abraham died. Why? Because God didn't want that Abraham should see how his grandson is going off into the negative ways. So he should die in peace. Therefore, all in one blessing shortened his life by 5 years. For Isaac lived for 180 years, and Abraham lived for 175. And Jacob cooked lentils to feed the mourners. He wanted to feed his father lentils. Why lentils? Because they are round as a wheel. For mourning is like a wheel revolving around the door. Also, lentils have no mouth, no crack, and the other beans has. So the mourners have no mouth, for it's prohibited for them to speak. It is therefore custom to feed mourners an egg at the beginning of his meal. We do that. We serve an egg since it's round and has no mouth. So too mourners have no mouth. It's like they have no expression. They're totally in shock. A mourner for the entire first 2 days, as the Shulchan Aruch, may not respond to anyone's greeting, may surely not initiate a greeting. From the 3rd day and on to the 7th, he may respond but not greet. This is found in the old edition of Rashi. Yaakov said, I'll give you a drink. but I want you to sell your birthright. So Rashi says, as the day is day, I want you to sell it to me as the day is day. So your birthrights, since this, why did Yaakov want the birthright? Because at that time the Kohanim would be from the firstborn. Jacob said, "This wicked man does not deserve to sacrifice for the Holy One, blessed be He." The Kohanim at that time later was taken away from them after the golden calf. It was taken away from the Kohanim. The Kohanim became from the tribe of Levi. Verse 32. I'm going to die anyway. Why do I need the firstborn? I'm dying anyway, so what's the difference? So Rashi says, the birthright is something unstable. For the sacrificial service will not always be the function of the firstborn. For the tribe of Levi will take it. Said Esau to Jacob, what's the nature of this service? So many prohibitions and punishments and death penalty involved in it. I don't need this. These are the ones that are liable to death. Those who perform the temple service or invited with wine, and those who not cut their hair. There's so many laws when it comes to being a priest. Why would I want? I don't follow laws. I am going to go. This is going to bring me death. So have a good day. Verse 33. So Yaakov said, make this vow. He made the vow. He sold the firstborn. Yaakov does laser lechem v'zira dashim. So Yaakov gave to Esau porridge of lentils. He ate and he drank. He got up and left. Yizav, Esau as a bechayra, and Esau despised the bechayra. Not only gave it up, he despised. So Rashi says Scripture attests to his wickedness that he despised the servants. That was the reason why he didn't have a bechayra, because he didn't want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he was like he despised God's service. Continue, verse number 1. It was a famine in the land. Besides, it was the first famine that was in the land. Melech Plishtim. Yitzchak went to Avimelech, the king of Plishtim, Gerara to Gerara. Yarei love Hashem, and God revealed himself to him. I know there's a famine in the land, but you don't go down to Egypt. You are stuck here. Don't live for your father who left the land. When there was a famine, you have to stay here. So that God had to warn him. Because he wanted to go down to Egypt, as his father did. God told him, don't do that. You are not allowed to leave Israel. You have to stay in Israel. Verse 3, live in this land. I'll be with you. And I'll bless you. Because to you and your offspring, I'll give this land. I'm going to keep the vow. Which I made a promise to Avram, Avicha. So now, verse number 4. And I will multiply your seed as the stars in the heaven. I'll give to your offsprings all this land. And the nations of the world will bless in your offsprings all the nations of the land. So what does that mean? So what means that the nations of the land were blessed? People would tell their children, your offspring should be like Yitzchak's offerings. As later we find, that the Jewish people, Yaakov Avinu said the Jewish people will say to their children, you should be like Ephraim and Menashe. That's the expression, is Baruch Hu b'zaracha, they're blessed in your seed. Why do I give you this blessing? Verse number 5. Because Abraham listened to my voice. And he hearkened to my voice. My commandments, my statutes, and my instructions. So that's the Shama Avram B'Kaili, when I tested him, he refrained, referring to the decrees to distance himself from transgression and warnings of the Torah, to prevent incest, and according to the rabbinic decree to safeguard the prohibitions of Shabbos. That's the Shemitah, the fence around the Torah. My commandments, referring to things which have not been written, would have been fit to be commanded. Prohibition against robbery and bloodshed. Chukaisai, referring to things that the evil inclination and the nations of the world argue against. The prohibition against eating pork and the wearing of garments of wool and linen, which have no reason to chukah, but which are decrees of the king and his statutes over his subjects. In my instructions, this is the oral law given to Moshe at Sinai, so we know that Avram Avinu kept the entire Torah. And that finishes the Chumash of today. We go to the Tanya of the day. Tanya of the day, we started yesterday, the Kuntres Achad. These are very deep concepts that the Alter Rebbe wrote later on, explanations of the Zohar and the Arizal, very deep aspects. Try to give you we'll read it quickly. I'll try to give you explanation as much as my capability. We say in davening every day, and before Baruch Shema, we say, for the sake of the union of Kucha Berichuhu, blessed the union of the Holy One, blessed be He, and His Shechina, and the Shechina, and the presence of God, to bring a unity between the upper letters of God's name and the lower letters of God's name. And that's an interesting expression in the davening, but really it's the meaning in Kabbalistic means is the connection between Zah and Malchus. Zah Malchus of the world of Atzilus. The Zah is the six midos. Zeir Ampin is like the six midos, six attributes of the world of Atzilus, the world of a nation, that they have to kiss together, they have to come together and bring a unity. And they are unified through the service of a Jew here in this world. That's a Kabbalistic concept. So here we have the meaning of this teachings in the Tanya. Ayin Eitz Chaim Sharon Akudus. The Alter Rebbe brings a Kabbalistic statement of Eitz Chaim in the portal of Hanekudot. She'ein hachazaras panim lepanim, that it can be a turn from face to face. There can be the unity of Zah, that Zah should come down to Malchus. Zah is the giver, and Malchus is the receiver. Kimadei mitzvahs maisis dafke. This is accomplished when a Jew does an actual or physical mitzvah. The Tamadav, the Alter Rebbe is explaining the Zohar. He tries to explain the Zohar in a simple way. So the reasoning of the Eitz Chaim, they maisim tovim, that by the means of good deeds that a Jew does in this world, they bring about Ziva Ga'elyon, they bring about the supernal union that happens between Zah, between the higher level and the lower. Now, why would mitzvahs be involved in action would be accomplished this concept? You, Man will understand the writings of the Eitz Chaim, Shar man umad. Because first, before the supernal union takes place, there must be an elevation of mayim nukvin. Explained before, mayim nukvin. Mayim from nukva, from the feminine element of Zah in Malchus. So we have to. So in essence, Mayim Nukvim it comes. Its connection. Where does the physical part of the aspect of the higher level of Zah? Where is this found? This is actually found in a physical mitzvah. We know that something that's higher comes down lower. So Toyu, for example, the level of Toyu, which is higher than Tikkun, only comes down into a physical part of the world. So that's why we need to change the physical, because within this physical world, actually we find a very high level. This is a Kabbalistic concept. So that's why it says, V'hine, ha'maisim ha'tovim nikroim kisuach v'katzas ha'kesem nechaz b'achrayim.
Rabbi, what is the word Zah? You keep saying Zah.
Zah is as many interpretations. The word Zah, Zeir Ampin, or it's the six midas of the world of Atzilus. So it's a Kabbalistic term. I don't know exactly how to. Zeir Ampin. It's the six levels of the world of Atzilus. It's a Kabbalistic terminology. So in our Meisim time, you can see the night good deeds are described as a trimming of the hacking off of the thistles that they attach themselves to the hinder part, which is the physical part of this world. Which is the state of deed. B'Shaim and Zion Perikei is brought down in Eitz Chaim in Kabbalah in chapter 7, chapter 5. I know idea Allah Sateva Gnuzim. This is the pruning. This pruning. When we come and we do a physical, we bring a mitzvah. This prunes the physical. This is bitter. That's what's called in other terminology called bitter. The sifting. When we do something in this world and we sift away the bad and we elevate the good. So that's like a pruning of a tree. And we prune the tree. Why? We're not there to cut off the tree because we want to destroy the tree. We actually want to bring out the beauty or even make the tree better. So by elevating the elements of good that was concealed in them, the things of the world that are related to Asiyah, the world of action, and that's a close in the mitzvahs of action. What do we do? To the level in the Zah, in Atzilus, that has already been refined. What's written over there, that Adam Arishan did that. How did Adam Arishan? Adam Arishan also did that service, and Zoya says that he did it through Aldei Tefillah, he did it through prayer. Because that was the first thing he did, was he prayed. So the Alter Rebbe says that also means through the uttering of the letter of speech. That's the way he did it. Because in Jewish law, as he mentioned many times, that the moving of the lips is an action. The rectification of the world of Asiyah, first they go up to the Yitzira, to the world of formation. Ban, Kabbalistic terminology, through the name of Ban, and from the world of formation to the world of creation, and ultimately the world of emanation, as is written in that chapter, that portal 40, portal Man, Drush 11, Simeon Zayin. And that's why we understand the Hudalav Midi, that in this world you cannot accomplish anything through thought, because it has to be through action. Because without the elevation of Mayim Nukvim, of the hidden waters, the feminine waters, that takes the concept of digging. That's also an interesting thing. Yitzchak is digging wells because he's that aspect, the Gevura, the elevating, the revealing the world. He cannot accomplish to draw forth the drops from the union of Zah, which is Zah and Nukva. Because Zah always wants to nurture from its mother. It doesn't really want to go down. Zah really doesn't want to come down to Malchus. It only wants to go higher. So what brings that Zah, this level of these, the higher midah should come down into Malchus, that needs to have a higher power. So who affects that higher power should push Zah, this level of these attributes, to come into the level of Malchus? That's the Avodah. When we reveal something very deep here in this world, that affects the upper worlds to push it down into a lower world. So we go above, and the Eibishter pushes things down. Look at also in the Zohar, in the portion of Pekudei, not mentioned all the base, Yisur Dura Lasalka states there a mode of gazing. This refers to the intentions, the kavanas in the worship and the supernal unions. For those who know and understand how to gaze, for the nefesh, shruch, neshama itself constitutes arousal, initiated by the recipient, which is known man. This is a Kabbalistic term, through the self-sacrifice of the devotion for Torah, uvenefilas apayim, and during the Tachnun prayer, which is said during which we say, to you, God, I lift my soul. Kenoida, as is known to those who know Kabbalistic concepts. And that's how we end today's Tanya. Today is the 28th day of the month, and you have to go and now say that to be able to do the chitas, you need to go to today. The Tillim of the day, the 28th of the month, is chapter 135 through chapter 139. 135 to 139. Have a wonderful day. We will see you back in Mitzshem if you want at 10 a.m. We're going to continue the learning of chapter 50, beginning of chapter 50 of Tanya. Have a wonderful and beautiful day.